Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ancient Aliens in Modern Times. We are your hosts, Stephanie Yelovich and
Melanie Wild. Let's get into it.
yeah, girl. So, friends, we have a very interesting and exciting episode today. I feel like, Mel, I would love you to introduce it because you speak to it beautifully. So
Let's
I'm
do it.
handing it off.
So this is the first of a series that Steph and I are diving deep into. So we're doing a lot of research around this series, but what the idea is of the next, what do I have, like 10, 13 episodes of the pantheons of the gods. So we're going to talk about the gods of now in modern day, and specifically this episode, we're going to get into the political stuff and the political players that are perceived as quote unquote gods, right? And
Hmm.
this is like when we're using the term gods here, we're using the term to convey power and authority without what's the word? Without consequence. Yeah, without
Yes.
consequence, without
And
having to,
without
like.
deifying.
Yes. And then next week, we're gonna get into Hollywood and the royals, and then,
Mm.
we'll continue from there. I think we did a breakdown for you in at the end of the last episode, so if you wanna know more about that, what's to come, go into that last episode at the end there, and yeah, we're gonna go all the way back chronologically in time and end up back in Sumer with our
Mm.
first recorded, um, ancient cultures. So, today, the gods of now, the political players, who are they? What has given them so much control? And
Mm.
why do they care so much about controlling us?
Very good questions, my friend.
Oh, yes,
It's
and Stephanie has a book that she's bringing forward today, which she's talked about before in,
Mhm.
some of our first episodes together before she came on as a co-host.
Yeah,
Yeah, Steph, tell us about that book. What do you got?
sure. So I think why this book I find so interesting is because it's highlighting, well, first of all, the book is called The Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis by Sarah Breskman Cosme. Sarah was and is, I should say is, not was, well, was a student of Dolores Cannon and the quantum hypnotherapy work that she developed, that she discovered actually, where she started regressing people into their past lives, as well as connecting them to their highest self to hear messages from the highest self. And so this is the same work that Sarah is doing. And I really admire her and honestly her courage in writing this book. This is definitely not about the golden age of Atlantis. This is about the end. This is about a time when chaos and disorder was more rampant than peace and togetherness and community. And I think there are some very powerful parallels in this book that we can look at that seem to be repeating in the present day. And, there was a question that I asked to Mel before we hopped on here to record. And I just asked, like, why do we forget so quickly as humans? Yes,
Mm.
sure, when we reincarnate, we do come back with the memory loss. But why do we look at history, which is the most important subject, one of the most important, in my opinion, and look at these, wars, conflicts, genocides, situations, political decisions, rulers, and see what's happened in the past and then recreate it all over again with just a
Why
different
don't we
name or a
learn?
different yeah, like why don't we learn? So this is where I'm gonna look to the past with my dear friend Mel here. to understand and maybe get you listeners to think a little bit about why we keep repeating these things, and also why we continually give our power to these so-called gods rather than sitting in our sovereignty and understanding the fact that we actually don't need these people to rule us or control us. And so this book, it highlights some really interesting things, and something interesting to note as well is that this book was banned on Amazon for, I keep thinking 2 years. I'd have to look that up. You could even Google that, but, even Sarah spoke to it on her Instagram page and said, "You know, we don't know why, but you for the longest time, it came out, I bought it right away because it was of interest to me, and then people couldn't access it." Having read the book, I think I know why people couldn't access it, because it highlights some very, I don't wanna say scary, but some familiar things that have happened in the recent, I'm gonna say 5 years, last 5 years, and even 10 years, and even going back further. But, um, let's bring forward the first thing. So, this
Mm.
one I think is really, we've calmed a little bit now in this, like, divide and conquer mentality that was going on during the time of the pandemic, and I think now there's a little bit more ease in talking about it because I don't think people are so hot and angry, and I don't think everybody, well, I'm gonna say it, I think a lot of people have forgotten already what we've moved through in the last 4 to 5 years. So, what I found interesting about some of the overlaps of what's happened in the past, but then now what is happening, like I said, in about the last 5 years, is the fact that there was a virus that the Atlanteans were dealing with at the end of the civilization. There was a vaccine and there was a quarantine that did happen. And what I find really fascinating is this also has to do very directly with the ruler at the time, who was very much described in this book as a dictator. And what I should note is that this is coming from the perspective of a Lemurian queen who was captured. So when the technology loss started to happen at the end, and when it started to take over, when the ruler started to lose control of the people, they actually went to the Lemurians and they stole these crystals, essentially, that were important technology to power their machinery, but also, I'm sure, had more mystical technical capabilities. So, this virus that they described was something like cholera. So, they said that it would cause excessive vomiting and people would dehydrate. So, they did develop a vaccine. And the vaccine, which is what's interesting and slightly different from our current modern day, is that the vaccine actually came from animal cells. So they were working with animal DNA. And what they did was they wouldn't inject it, but they made a small incision in the skin, and then they would place this solution, I guess, that was considered the vaccine into the skin. And so it worked for a moment. And then all of a sudden, the children that were being born from the people that received it started to be born with deformities. So they were born with scales or odd fur or hair. So some of those animal characteristics were coming in. They were also born with missing limbs, so without arms or legs. So, of course, the ruler, in panic, ordered another one to be created, and that didn't work, and then they even had to create a third, which I guess eventually did work. But what happened with these people and these beings, remember too, back to our episode where we talked about the creation stories and we had these humanimals. So this theme of playing around with DNA and playing God, essentially, um, comes back from that time into this
Mm.
present day. And what I noted here is that it was a mandatory vaccine. So again, we're seeing parallels where these people had no choice. They had to take this. here we are again having to take we were told it was mandatory and that we were forced and we had to. And those of us who did not were made to feel like lepers or like we were less than or that we did not care about our community
Mhm.
or our people. So this theme continues, right? Which is not at all the case. So what ended up happening was these people or these children that were born with these deformities were essentially treated like slaves and they were put in this quarantine place almost like animals in a zoo and they were kept from everyone else or they would take the child at birth and they would kill the child. So imagine you give birth to this being and it's taken and ripped from your arms and and taken away and gone. Um I don't know if that's happening in that way, but there are situations where women, and mothers are being forced into and made to feel guilty for not vaccinating their
Mhm.
newborns. So, again, parallels that we're looking at here. Sorry, but a mother's wisdom is more powerful than a lot of other wisdom that exists on this planet, just saying. I'm not even a mother yet, but in being surrounded by them, it's an
Mhm.
honor, truthfully. So that brings me a little bit to the dictator now. So this leader, he was a cruel and heartless person, and it does say he's not named in the book, but he wanted to continue his reign so bad. It was power, like that was the thing that he needed. So by by going to so now I'm leaving the kind of this story or this information about the vaccine and going back to the technology, and so he was the one that ordered these crystals or this technology to be taken from the Lemurians, and this queen even discusses the fact that she was imprisoned, and they would try to get information out of her. And stuff that she like this honestly, this being is one of the most amazing and powerful and strong beings because she did not yield. She did not give in, she did not give the information. And he becomes very different, it says here, when he didn't get what he wanted. So very brutal. He became a dictator, and their approval no longer mattered to him. So he had a plan, and I think we have to note too that I'm saying he, wherein there, I'm sure, were many people on his council. Like, if we look at today, we look at Trump, we look at Carney, those are the mouthpieces, but or the puppets. But in reality, there is a whole council of people with similar thinking and similar want to control and have their power. And so, I hear people often say, oh, well, he's going to be out of power in a month, or I hope he dies. And I'm going, yeah, but it's going to do nothing. I don't wish death upon anyone, but it's like he's gonna do it's gonna do nothing. There's still, like, a whole
That's
lineup
right.
behind him, waiting to continue with their malevolent plans. So, that's not quite how it works, and, again, going back to that idea that there are not governmental solutions going forward, there are
Mhm.
solutions. And remember, there are more of us than the elites. So if we realize our power and we step into using that power and step into our sovereignty, we're not controllable. Right? So just to give you that empowerment and that reminder that like they use fear and control to make us feel like we need them or that we won't survive without them. Look at what happened with this pandemic. It was an experiment. They say it on the WEF website. You can go and look it up. It's a whole plan. And it's written out for us to read because there is part of this idea that these beings can't do anything without our
Mhm.
consent. When you vote, you are consenting to someone else having
Yeah,
power
and
over you.
you're not even
When you
voting for
accept
the
that
person that
medical
you think you're voting for either. You're giving consent to
correct,
the system as a whole by voting, right? Be Yeah, sorry to interrupt you,
correct.
but keep going.
No, no, I agree with you, and I think, can you honestly give me an example of a politician that has ever done what they say they are going to do? Because I can't. Like, I've watched this my whole life. my parents have shared this with me, my parent, excuse me. But where have they ever done what they say they are going to do? And then when they get themselves into power, like I remember Trudeau had a camera guy that followed him. Look how benevolent and loving I am, and look at me and my wife, and we're being so good, and look, we're at the Toronto Pride Parade, and look how woke I am. But in reality, he got into power, told us that we had to have this mandatory experimental thing that ended up making people be
Mhm.
very ill. And I can speak to that because I saw it in my own
Mhm.
family members. I have a family member that's cancer reappeared after the only thing they changed was those vaccinations. I had people die of heart issues in my family, a blood clot that showed up in my grandmother's leg, and this was the thing that was changed. So I digress. Those are very specific examples, but people are not stupid. And I think we need to stop forgetting so quickly and start to realize that this pattern in this cycle continues to repeat because we are allowing it and because we are
Mhm.
consenting. And if we are shown these plans on the internet, in scary reels where they try to control us and take away our power, and we go, oh my God, did you see this? This is what they're going to do. They're going to implement the digital ID. Well, yeah, but you're consenting to it by letting them feed off
Mhm.
of that fear. Is it scary? Yeah, it can be. Of course it can be. But they can do nothing
That's
without
right.
your consent.
And they're gonna try
Thank you for coming to
everything
my TED
to
Talk.
coerce that consent that they can, which we saw in 2020 through
Absolutely.
2023, like, that whole
Mhm.
ridiculous still triggered by that, but now they're doing it again with this hantavirus. They're,
Me
like,
too.
literally rolling in 6
Yeah.
years later, the exact same scenario and seeing who's gonna take the bait. And beyond just these, like, viruses, which I believe are manufactured weapons of war, right?
Mm,
They have
mm,
an MO to keep the population down, and they've lost control. They lost control of the population a long time ago, allegedly also, right? Like, you also have to keep in mind that the numbers that were given could be lied, right? Like, I personally have never done a
yes.
count to prove that there's 8 billion people on the planet right now. I don't know that. I'm told that, right? But I don't know
True.
that.
That's so true.
And I don't know
Yep.
that the people that have given me this number can be trusted that that number is accurate. But anyway, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
they the concern in the times of Atlantis was that the population not only became wise, and very
Mm,
much, what's the word? Independent of themselves, sovereign of themselves, but
yep.
they also became very large, and so a large population is very difficult to control. And not only that they're large, but they're also smart, and they also have access to highly advanced tech. And so we're seeing that in modern days now, where the population is allegedly getting much larger, and we're also having more access to more advanced technology. And so as we have access to this technology, we can use this to become smarter, right? Which I believe that you, the listener, is doing because
Mhm.
you're here on this podcast and you're dissecting these topics with Stephanie and I, where we're like really looking into what are we being told? What can be trusted, and how can we really evolve as a species with this information that we have? And so they're actively trying to shut down the brains of people like us so that we don't outsmart them and figure out what's going on. And ha ha ha. um they're gonna lose. Like, it's just you can't catch us now, right? Like, your opportunity to catch us
Mhm.
is long gone because you were careless in your approach in deceiving us. And, you can't go back. Like, you're never, ever going to
Mhm.
convince me, um, that COVID wasn't a mass depopulation agenda to roll in the new world order.
Mhm.
Like, you'll just and I'm not alone in that. We're not alone in that. There's too many of us that believe that, that
No.
you can and the only way that you can now gain control of this population that has grown wise to the
Mm.
abuse is to kill them. Like, really, that's the only way that and so
Yeah.
now they they can't do it through vaccinations because we're refusing them, which is what they were hoping to do with
Mhm.
COVID. So now they're releasing things like ticks
Mhm.
that are going to right?
Yeah. And to look at things in a hopeful way, they really just
Oh,
triggered a mass
totally.
awakening.
Yeah.
So thank you. Not that it was pleasant or enjoyable. I'm still, like, traumatized from from that time of my life, and I lost friends and I lost family members, unfortunately, and I don't mean to death, I mean to the other timeline, I
Mm.
suppose, and that was very heartbreaking, but how incredibly positive that so many people were shown the light and went, "Wait a second,"
Yeah,
you know?
and if
Sorry, back
we're
to you, my
being lied
friend.
to about this, what else are we being lied to about? Which is, like, really how we got here to this podcast
Yep.
is, like, questioning all of these things. So, what else are we being lied about? Okay, so currently, King, quote, in quote,
Yeah,
King
let's go here.
Charles, has very recently stated that they're rolling out digital ID. So we've been told that digital ID in the mainstream in the other timeline, that digital ID is for our convenience, right? Yes.
Mm.
So it is for your convenience that the government have full access of the ins and outs of your mind.
Like, it's actually astonishing.
Like, how did we I
Excuse me.
know, and how Wha why are we not surprised though? Like, that's the thing is it's like, how did we get to the point where something so fucking retarded, excuse my French, could not be shocking? Like, I'm not surprised that this is where we're at.
No, and I think too, you and I were discussing what they're attempting here in our country, in good
Hmm.
old Canada. Um, there's a new bill that's being introduced. Do you wanna speak
Oh,
to that?
Bill C-22. Let me you know what? Let's just
Mm.
see what Chad has to say
Yes.
about Bill C-22.
Okay.
Let's see what the mainstream other timeline says.
It's in the reel I sent you. Yeah, it is C-22, monitor every Apple
The
device.
proposed consumer privacy data protection.
Yeah, it's lawful access, C-22 lawful access. So yeah, C-22 will monitor every Apple device from phones to watches and send all phone data information to the Liberal government without any warrants. Government control of our free speech is what
And
leads
the
to
government
dictatorship.
says it is
Boom.
needed because criminals increasingly use encrypted apps and investigations move too slowly, and that the police need modern digital tools. You know who's using encrypted apps? The awakened community, because we
Mm,
don't want to be spied on.
correct.
And like, so yes, so it's for your safety that we can spy on criminals, but y- you're, I swear that they can read my mind already.
Yeah, but this is where it comes down to dictatorship because who determines who the criminals are? Under the current Liberal government, nobody's doing nothing about the criminals in our country. Crime has raised here in Canada. The drug problem is ridiculous. I live in Hamilton, Ontario, my friends, and what I see downtown is not the Hamilton that I grew up in. So to state that they're doing this for our protection and our freedom, but they don't even penalize criminals in this country or protect their citizens like they say they do is
Mhm.
astonishing to me. So you have to look at that as a fact too. Who determines what is criminal?
And, we were considered criminals in 2020 through 2023
Correct.
when we refused to comply to the unlawful rules, right? I didn't wear a mask in a grocery store. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't wear a mask, I didn't get
Me
vaccinated,
neither.
um, and you bet
I didn't even wash my hands more than I needed to. I didn't even
I
wash my
washed them
hands more.
at
I
a
didn't get sick.
reasonable amount. But, I was considered a
I do
criminal
wash my hands,
because
people. I also shower.
Christmas of 2020, when you were only allowed to gather
Mm.
with people in your own household, I yeah, what did they
Bubble
called it? Your
pod.
cohort?
The pod or your
Um, yeah, so in 2020, when it was illegal to gather, at Christmas time, I had I had a Santa Claus come to the house, and I had all of our friends park at the grocery store down the street and walk over, and we closed all of our blinds so that the neighbors couldn't tell on us, and we had, I don't know, a house full of
wow.
30 people having pictures with Santa Claus. And so
Mhm,
I was considered a criminal at that point in time for gathering with Santa in
mhm.
my living room at Christmas time. So
Yep,
that's the
yep.
kind of thing that it's like who decides what is lawful and unlawful, and when you have a bunch of criminals deciding what is lawful and
Mm,
unlawful, then you as the
mhm.
citizen aren't gonna be treated properly, right? So we're talking about
Yep.
this pantheon of political gods in modern day. We're talking about what has given them power, and because it's not the people, right? We did not give them power. They have been appointed power.
Can I also note, all of those people are in the Epstein files. So I don't think we disagree in saying that what was shared, the very little of what was shared in those files was horrendous. But all of these people that you are speaking to right now who lead our countries, also, let's just note, nobody voted for Mark Carney. That guy was shooed in because Trudum left, excuse me, but left the house and was like, "I'm out, I resign." Nobody voted for him.
Yeah,
Can we note that?
no one voted for him.
Very important. None. I lost my train of thought
The
now because I
Epstein
got
files.
feisty, but fully in agreement. Yes, but like this is where these people are named. So why are we listening to them and
Yeah, and
trusting them?
oh my gosh, the
Just a
Epstein
question.
files. Why are we not oh, okay. So why are first of all, train of thought there, finish that, is why are we not more angry about the Epstein files? Why has that just been brushed under the rug? Like, we are talking about a
Mhm.
global sex trafficking pedophilic ring and nobody cares. And then they all vote for Donald Trump to come in to office for the second time so that he can quote unquote drain the swamp. And then he's now quoted. Why are we still talking about the Epstein files? Why aren't you people over that? It's like, okay, so Donald Trump doesn't care about the pedophiles because he's on the fucking list. You know who else is on the list? The
Yeah.
Obamas. Mr. Big Mike.
Mm, how
Yeah,
interesting.
they are in the files, and the Clintons, right? It's left and right. right? We're not talking about left versus right,
Yeah.
and I think this is what the conversation needs to go, is
Mm-mm.
that we are being controlled by something bigger than what we've been presented, right? And
Mm. Mhm.
and this divide and conquer agenda is, like, mad at play, and it's like it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
If you get the people fighting each other,
Yeah.
they will never fight us. And so who yeah,
That's so true.
who's the us? Who's this, like who are the puppeteers? Who's controlling this whole thing?
Mm. Mhm. Well, I'm sure we're gonna get into that in our
This is
coming
true.
episodes.
We do have this planned.
Yeah, we do. And can I note one other thing too that was implemented during that interesting time, was Bill C-18. So this is another thing we need to look at, and this is when they started implementing the fact that we in Canada are not allowed to post any news
That's
on
right.
social media. So then this happened during the time of COVID pandemic time where we were trying to share the truth, we were trying to discuss the truth, but we were literally blocked from sharing the truth. If you're following the propaganda channels and that's what you think is truth, okay, fine. But those of us who wanted to share other information, like you said, had to go almost not underground, but we had to find other ways to share truth. And so, even just us being able to speak, we again were censored and we again were attacked. So, what I laughed about was people going, "Oh, it's for our safety because there's so much fighting on the internet and there's so much racism." But you can't even share what the propagandists are putting in their media on in social media? Like, it you have to look at these things, people, and wonder why these things are rolling out the way that they're rolling
Yes.
out, you know?
Why is only one side allowed to speak, right? And then so it's like
Yes.
so and then that side that's not allowed to speak, the thing that bothers me about the quote unquote "awakened community" is that they
Mm,
get just as caught up in the divide and conquer. And like
correct.
okay, so there's this divide and conquer agenda that I'm seeing play out in the awakening community as well, where it's like people are getting mad at each other for critically analyzing um, what's being talked about and what's being preached as truth. And,
Mm,
you know, it's not that this is bad, right? And you saying that we're not allowed to critically analyze one another, because that's not love and light, is I don't know, it just feels like
it's spiritual bypassing.
yeah, and while, yes, we don't wanna play into the divide and conquer agenda, it's like, well, then don't play into it. Allow people to analyze what they wanna analyze and be open to multiple points of view, right? Because I think that's where the divide and conquer comes in, is it's like you become so rigid in your thinking that you no longer allow other points of view to even be expressed. And that's
Mhm,
happening I'm seeing a lot online within the awakened community where they're saying, "Oh, you're not allowed to question this spiritual influencer because they already know everything about the Galactic Federation of Light. And of course,
mm,
their channeling is real. And so, how dare you even suggest that maybe they aren't channeling with God, with the ultimate
mhm,
truth?" And it's like and then they're saying that if you question each other, then you're partaking in the divide and conquer, and it's like, "No, you're actually
yes,
partaking in the divide and conquer by not allowing people to fully research and express a variety of point of views." That's what the
yes.
divide and conquer is by saying, "No, we won't allow another point of view." And that's happening here in Alberta also, where,
Mhm.
um, currently
Mm.
over so May it's mid-May, and starting in January of this year, 2026, there was a petition to host a referendum to call for a vote for Alberta to separate from Canada and become its own nation. And so
Mm.
they had to get, I think, like 175,000 signatures in order to put a vote on the ballot to separate from Canada or not. Now,
Mm.
they well exceeded that, 175,000 signatures, and they got over 300,000, and then they stopped counting. So they probably got more, but they stopped counting at 300,000 signatures to have a referendum vote because this appointed judge, federal judge that was appointed by, drumroll please, Justin Trudeau.
Oh, but of course. But of course.
Um, she decided that because the, people that organized the petition didn't seek the approval of the Indigenous treaty tribe chiefs. I don't even know who they're supposed to seek this approval from, but because they didn't have the approval to have a petition from the indigenous people who signed their rights to their land over to Canada many, many years ago, that the petition is void and um, not worthy of going through. So
Mm.
they're taking away this one woman, this one judge. I should have wrote her name down. I had it earlier. Um, she's decided on behalf of all of Albertans that Canada does not, or that Alberta does not need to separate from Canada. Now, what's interesting about this is that they're using the Indigenous people as a fucking scapegoat, which, like, how woke? Like,
Mm.
give me a break. Like, these poor people have been absolutely destroyed by the colonizers
Yes.
since we got here,
Yes.
and now they're being used to benefit the colonizers some more, right? Their name is
Wow.
being used, without them even having a say, by a
Yeah.
white woman who was born in New
Yeah.
Brunswick. And she's decided that on their behalf, we're not gonna allow the Albertans to speak or have a vote. And it's like, it's just a vote.
Mm.
Like, let the people speak. But they're afraid that if they let the people speak, that the people will say, actually, we do want to separate and we want to become our own nation. And what would happen to
Mhm.
Canada if Alberta became its own nation is Canada would go broke. Because
Sure.
Alberta, has all the oil. All of the
Yeah.
oil is
Our
here.
greatest oil stores.
Right, and what is oil? Oil
Yep.
is wealth. And so
Mm.
if Canada loses its wealth, then they get broke, and Alberta gets super rich, and Alberta is, like, been well known, to be a conservative province. Like, we have
Yep.
conservative morals, and now those are quickly being, overrun by the mass immigration that's happening, uh,
Mhm.
to our province. But however, just to say that, you know what? We're actually not open to hearing multiple perspectives. We're not open to allowing people to come to the table with their perspectives. We're not going to let that happen at all. That is divide and conquer. And for you to say within the spiritual or awakened community that we're not open to having a variety of perspectives come to the table, like,
Mhm.
you're contributing to the divide and conquer by not being open.
Yes. And you're
Yeah,
also
sorry,
censoring people.
you
It's further
are.
censorship. It's further censorship. When you're told that you're not allowed to question things, that should send a chill up your spine. This is
Absolutely.
censorship. This is a like, and honestly, follow the truth. Like, whatever they wanna cover up clearly is something that they don't want others to know. Yeah.
Exactly, and, like, that brings us back to our whole episode multiple episodes
Mhm.
about Metatron and, like, we raised a lot of and even the plant medicine stuff, like,
Mhm.
we triggered quite a bit of people online with having these discussions of, like, is this
Yeah,
right or wrong? And it's like, we're just having a discussion,
for
and
sure.
to say that you're not allowed to speak. And so we have this censorship bill. What was that? C-18
Yeah,
about
that's the social media one.
yeah, about, Canadians aren't allowed to share news. Um,
News. Yeah.
news. And, like, I follow a lot of American content creators, and oftentimes
Mhm.
their things will be, blocked for me, and it'll
Yep.
say due to your region's laws, you're not allowed to see this. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And then I'll have to go into the comment section and ask an American to screenshot and DM me the screenshot,
Yeah.
but not a copy and paste because it'll flag that. It
Yep.
has to, yeah. So now I want to come into the data centers that
Mhm. Yeah.
are being
This is big.
built. Yeah, because so C-22, the newest
Mhm.
bill, that will likely go forward because when I remember C-18 came up, it was like there was a lot of protesting about that, and it still went into play. And now the C-22 about unlawfully spying on its citizens and collecting our data from private conversations, which is like, I
Yep.
mean, to a degree, I think they've already been doing it. They're just now announcing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
good
need
point.
somewhere to host this, right? They need a data center. And
Yep.
so, um, I just watched a video from Ian Carroll, about this data center that's allegedly being built underground at the White House under the ballroom renovations.
Oh.
Yes. So you should go check out Ian Carroll's YouTube video on this because he always goes into great depths. He's a great researcher and content creator. Highly recommend following him. Um, but yeah, so they're building these data centers underground to host all of this. So it's like they don't care. They do not care if we protest this. They don't care if we vote against this. They're already doing it. They're already building the
Yep.
centers to host this information. So
Yes.
what is the information for?
Hmm. Maybe the answers were talked about in that closed door meeting between Obama, Carney, and Alex Soros, because that's also pretty eerie to me that there's some pretty big special meetings happening and the public is not invited or allowed. Hmm.
Yes. Oh, speaking of big special meetings that the public is not allowed,
Yes.
last summer in, Kananaskis, which is not far from where I live in Calgary, I
Uh-huh.
went to my best friend's wedding, and the same weekend that she had her wedding was the World Economic Forum, uh,
Conference?
e elite
Party?
ritualistic
Yep.
party in the mountains. Um, and let me tell you, the security that we drove through.
Wow.
Listen, the place that we went to for this wedding was on the other side of the mountain from where this meeting was happening. And so we drove through Kananaskis on a dirt road for an hour on a dirt road through the we're talking mountain goats, like caribou. We're talking like middle of nowhere, 0 cell reception. The military, dude, it was wild. Every every, I'm gonna say 15, 20 minutes, there was a check stop of full military presence. Um,
Insane.
and we had to stop at every check stop, and they would, "What are you doing here?" And we're like, "Oh, we're going to the wedding." They're like, "Oh, the wedding, that's right. You can proceed," because we were told about the wedding that was happening at this resort that we went to. But anybody else was turned around, and they were like, "You are allowed," so they just on the road, "You're allowed to be on the right if you're gonna be hiking while you're here for the wedding, you're allowed to be on the right side of the road, but not the left. If you go onto the left," they dude, they were in full military fucking gear, like, armored, all of it, and they were told to shoot and kill. Like, you were not to go onto the left side of the road.
Wow.
They were
What a
camped
high
out, they had
risk wedding.
dude, they had drones going the whole time, like,
Mm.
it was wild.
But if
They
you
do
question that,
well, they don't want us to know what's going on.
worse.
Like, they really do not want us to know what's going on. Like, that
Mhm.
was insane.
Yeah.
And to, like, witness that firsthand,
Wow.
why so secretive, right?
Well, yeah. Wow, man, that's what a story. Whew.
Yeah. So, I just think that, like, when we're talking about this pantheon of these, like, world political players,
Mhm. Mhm.
w we need to remember that all through antiquity, these gods, these quote unquote gods, these
Yep.
beings with supreme power, um,
Mhm.
have always, always kept secrets,
Mhm.
had nefarious ideas,
Mhm.
motives, um, and there was always many of them, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Sometimes and they tried to be like, "Okay, well, the many gods aren't working anymore, so let's go into monotheism and just have the one," right? Because maybe
Mm.
people will do that, and so sometimes they've had just the one, but that doesn't
Mm.
work either, so they kind of flop back and forth, but most of the time,
Yes.
it's like this pantheon of, like, many of them where it's like, this god controls this, and this god controls that, and then
Mhm.
what we need to, like, zoom out of is, like, who's controlling all of them, right? And, like,
Mm.
this is the point that we're gonna try to tie together throughout this series, is that there's something or someone above it all, and I think we may have alluded to this already with the Metatron stuff, is
Mm.
that there is a grand master in all of this that is, controlling all of these little puppets that we take so seriously, like, what does Bill Gates have to say about it, right? And, like,
Mhm.
you have these people that are, like, kissing the ground and the floor that Bill Gates walks upon because he's a multi-billionaire, so it's like, well, we must listen to him because he's built all of this wealth, and he must be incredibly smart to have done that. Or
Mhm.
he must be incredibly evil to have done
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And look at his friends, Mr. Epstein. Look at the
Mhm.
friends.
Look at who you are by association. And it's even you hit on something very interesting here too, because what is success? What is power? We're told that owning a property, having a car, having lots of money is success and power. But I think what so many of us are realizing, especially those of us that are waking up, is that true power is having freedom and peace in our lives.
Mm,
Like, yes, sure, I'd love to have a beautiful property and I have dreams and things that I want to do. But, what is actually a picture of success? To them, it's money, it's ownership of land, it's things, it's control. But if we to redefine what actually makes us successful and I don't even want to say happy, but happy, is it all this external stuff? Again, coming back to the story of us seeking outside of ourselves and like
mhm.
I don't know, for me, my ultimate goal is peace and freedom.
Yeah. And I think that's what all of us should be striving towards. And
Mm.
yes, I agree that money provides a lot of freedom, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
this isn't like to hate on money and wealth. Like I think wealth and money are like
Yeah.
amazing things to acquire in your pursuit of peace and happiness. But it's
Yes.
not that the
Yes.
wealth and the money are going to give you happiness. It's what they can provide for you, right?
Freedom.
And that's it. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and wealth and money provide freedom, and freedom,
Yep.
sovereignty, autonomy, that is
Yes.
where we find peace. And
And
so yeah, please.
I think we need to realize too, we are in the greatest we are alive during the greatest wealth transfer that is existing on planet Earth in a very long time, but we want the wealth in the hands of the people who are awakened and have the goal for all people to have freedom, happiness, peace, and joy. And those are
That's right.
very broad words to use, but those of us who are here with intentions of bringing God into our spaces, speaking of actual true love, finding unconditional love, finding that source within, those are the people that I want to have wealth in their hands,
Mhm.
not those that want to control us and enslave us. So, yes, thank you so much, Mel, for saying that because you can believe that we have scarcity. Or you can believe that we are in the greatest wealth transfer of our time. And the
Mhm.
people that need to have that wealth in their hands are those that want the best for humanity.
Totally, and that is why, the elites hoard the wealth, because they know that
Correct.
if we have some of it, if they share any of it, that, we will become sovereign and free, and in that find peace and love and respect for the all and God, and so they hoard the wealth so that they don't share it with us so that they maintain control. Because I think I heard someone once ask, like, they're so rich, why do they need more? And it's not that they
Mm.
need more, it's that they need to control us from having more. So
Yes.
they hoard it
Yes.
for themselves. So that's what it is
Yep.
about. It's not that they need any more money, they don't need any more money. What they do need is to maintain their power. And so
Yes.
to maintain that is to keep it from us. And so,
Mhm.
like when they oh my god, I remember in, Hawaii when the laser beams
Oh, yes.
burnt the whole town down, whole city down,
Yeah,
and then they were
except
like,
for the blue
"Well,"
houses.
except for the blue roofs,
Mhm.
Oprah and The Rock, they were, like, all asking for us to give them money, and it's like, "Fuck all of you." Like,
Yeah.
you give the money. You
Yeah.
have the money. You want us people that are barely getting by with this inflation, which
Yep.
is by design, um, to give money, like, I just the audacity of billionaires asking
Mhm.
people that are barely getting by for money is just
Mhm.
ugh.
And
But
being
anyway,
one of the only countries that pays a carbon tax. Nowhere else pays a fucking carbon tax. It's made
yeah,
up and it's bullshit. Period.
it's not stopping the carbon.
I'm so sorry, mom. We're swearing a lot in this one, and it's needed.
Sorry, mom. And sorry all of my mom's friends. I know she's been directing you all here.
Love you, Katie and
Um
Linda.
Uh, okay, well, I think with that, we can wrap it up and, yeah, we're gonna come back next week and we're gonna talk more about Hollywood because we really wanted to there's a lot in modern day to discuss about who these gods
Mhm.
are, and so we've divided it up a bit because we really wanna get to, after next episode, about Hollywood and the royals, and we're gonna get into some bloodline stuff next episode as well.
Mm.
We wanna talk about who's
Juicy.
behind all of this because there is a very triggering group of society running this whole thing. So
Mhm.
stay tuned, my friends.
Sounds great.
love you all. And remember, stay grounded, stay in the light, stay in peace, pray with God, find your gratitude for what the world has to offer, because this world is truly a beautiful place. And we want to
Yes.
bring that back to the forefront. So may peace be with you.
May peace be with you.